Are you ready to explore the exciting tech world like never before? Welcome to Better You, the podcast where we dissect the latest in business, technology, and startup trends, all with a keen focus on growth. So buckle up and get ready to stay ahead of the curve. Let's make you a better you.
Folks, welcome to another episode of Better You. Today, I'm very excited because I have a very good friend on as a guest speaker. His name is Jason Pohl. He's a senior director of data management with Databricks. Jason is with Databricks for the last 9 years. I think it's a long time. He's doing a great job and looks like he loves it. And before I set the context for this episode, I just want to share a story how I met Jason. So Jason actually asked one of the recruiters several years ago, to reach out to me. I got on the call with the recruiter. I explained the situation to the recruiter. Then I got in touch with Jason. So Jason and we spoke for, I think, 30, 40 minutes. It was very clear that I was very excited to work for Jason. But when I shared with Jason that, hey, I moved from engineering to sales, and I do make a lot of money, it was very clear that there is no fit. And then we just cracked a joke on that call. And since then, Jason and we are friends. We have shared a lot of experiences together when it comes to technology, business, data platforms. And this is where I want Jason to share his side of the story. How does it work? How does it feel working for such an amazing, sexy brand like Databricks for almost now 9 years? And the second segment of the episode will be focusing more on Databricks as a data platform. And the main juice of this episode is Databricks Genie, because it looks like Jason is incubating the Databricks Genie as part of the new initiative which he's working on. So Jason, again, welcome. Very excited. Let's do this. Tell us more about your journey in Databricks.
Yeah, well, first of all, just thank you for having me on the podcast, Neeraj. It's great to finally do this. I've been talking about it for a while, and you're the candidate that got away. So it's been great to keep the friendship going over these last few years. And you're someone I value their opinion and like to talk with a lot.
I love it. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Databricks has been great. So it's like the smallest and the biggest company I've ever worked for. I think there was like 50 employees when I started. Now we're over 8,000, I think. So it's getting bigger, but at the same time, it feels like we're still just scratching the surface. There's a lot more to do. A lot of workloads we haven't even really touched yet. So I think it's exciting because the amount of data is still exploding these companies. And for the companies that have been kind of like acquiring this data for years and years now, sometimes without even knowing what they're going to do with it. Now, with this onset of AI, people are figuring out what to do with this data, and they've started to realize that this mound of data that they've been acquiring is actually their competitive advantage. So the people who are going to win with the application of AI are the ones that can take their proprietary data sets and then leverage that with AI to, generate new revenue streams or create operational efficiencies and do it in a way that's faster than their competitors can do it, but also differentiated because they have this data that nobody else has. They'll be able to create their own models off of it as well.
Nice. Jason, I do want you to go back one step. Tell us a little bit more. How is it working for Databricks? You're there for the last 9 years. How is it?
It's been great. I feel like we've got we've got a really strong product, and that product comes because of all the individuals that work around it, and then the co-founders I feel like have been really good and really instrumental in leading the company and setting the strategy, and more importantly, being able to make sure that the whole company is executing against that strategy, because execution is always much harder than the actual setting of a strategy. So I think the product's great, the people are great, and we're still like I think a very collegial culture. I feel like everybody's still kind of like pitching in and doing the teamwork to build this company. So in some ways, it still feels like a startup, even though we've gotten to 8,000. I don't know when you stop being a startup. I think maybe whenever the Windows laptops outnumber the MacBooks, maybe that's when you stop being a startup. But it still feels like a startup to me. And I get to basically every few years, re-challenge myself on how to work in a company that's grown to whatever size it's grown to. So, the types of challenges that I'm dealing with today in terms of scaling the org and scaling how we do go to market, it's different than, when we could fit everybody in the same conference room. So that keeps things interesting for me as well. Not the same.
Yeah, exactly. As you know, so I started my journey in the big data landscape as part of the Hortonworks, and then a lot of new companies emerged since 2013, 2014. I believe Databricks was founded in 2016. Is that correct?
No, it was founded in 2013.
Oh, 2013. Okay. Yeah. So the point I'm making is that it's very clear to the market that Databricks is one of the most sexy brand on the planet right now when it comes to a data platform, when it comes to cloud transformations, because every CIO, every CTO I talk to, their initiative for last 10 years or 15 years, their initiative was to move towards cloud. But as part of the next step was, hey, we need to adopt the data platform. Shall we use the cloud native data services, or shall we use something like Databricks? And the market is very clear. There are, of course, other options, but Databricks, the way Databricks has delivered generative AI story to the market, Wall Street is watching very carefully the Databricks IPO. I know we're not going to talk about the IPO in this episode. Yes, the point I'm making is that as part of my personal journey, also the professional journey, as I'm part of a startup, my previous startup and another startup, since then, for last 7+ years, I am working in the Databricks ecosystem. And this is how I know so many people. I know the product really well. And it's from my perspective, and also as a user, I can endorse that the promise that you guys have delivered as part of the Lakehouse and now as part of the Genie, I think it's the whole journey of the data platform looks really exciting for various personas who are using Databricks as a data platform. So, Jason, what is Databricks Genie then? Tell us more.
So Genie it's basically this new application that we've come out with. We kind of announced it or previewed it at Data and AI Summit last year, and then we've recently entered into public preview. But essentially, what it allows you to do is to talk to your data. So historically, if you wanted to interact with Databricks, you were probably either a data scientist or a data engineer, and then data analyst. And so unless you could write code, you couldn't really interact with Databricks. Like, you had to write at least SQL to be able to run queries on it, if not Python if you're a data scientist. What Genie allows you to do is basically just ask questions in natural language. And then what Genie does is it takes that question and then translates it into SQL using the data intelligence it's acquired about your data, and then get the response and then present it back to you either in a table or some sort of visualization. And so what it allows you to do is basically connect to the other 99% of users in an organization that weren't even aware of Databricks. So just to kind of give a couple examples, we've been trialing this with various customers. And so one of them is like a tax auditor. So they audit the books for, some of the largest companies out there. And, basically they can ask questions like, what's the effective tax rate of this company? And then you don't have to explain what an effective tax rate is. Genie just understands it because it has access to the semantics of your data. And then you can ask it other questions like, where should we think about moving, how can we optimize the effective tax rate for this customer? And it might look through the data and suggest like, oh, you should think about maybe moving operations, from this place to that place. So that's one example. Another one I think is retail. So we've had a lot of good success with retail. So when you think about it, there's a lot of business intelligence dashboards that get created, and then you deliver those to the business users, whether that's a brand manager or a line of business owner. And the first thing you're going to do is say, thank you for that dashboard. I'm going to export this to Excel, and then I'm going to slice and dice the data to answer the ad hoc questions that I have. But with Genie, you basically just ask those questions without having to do the export, and it can kind of tell you. So we've had retailers who would say like, hey, what are the other types of products that get bought along with this one particular product? And then they'll show you that. And then you can actually use that to build up promotions. So it's like, oh, if you buy this, get something else free, or let's do a two for one type offer. So those are the types of questions where you can't easily get that in a dashboard because you can never create enough drop downs and options to kind of do that type of question analysis. With Genie, you basically just ask it the question that you're really trying to get to. And the person doing that asking, they don't need to know SQL or Python or anything like that. They're just asking these questions. And then Genie will be smart enough where if you ask it a question and it doesn't have enough information about the semantics, like if you say, which customers are churning, it'll respond back to you like, hey, I don't understand the concept of churn. Can you explain it to me? And then you give it some information like, oh, churn is any customer that was, active for the last 30 days, but then dropped off after that. It'll use that information as what we call an instruction. And then for every question after that, it's basically retaining that knowledge to answer the questions in the right way. So it learns as you go along. And the biggest analogy I can think of is if you were to hire a brand new data analyst off the street, added them to your team, and you asked him or her to, answer some questions about the data, they're not really going to understand it without asking questions to the domain experts. But, over time, like after a week or two, they've probably acquired enough knowledge where they can answer some of these questions themselves. And I think Genie's the same way. It's basically like a new hire that you've added to your team. And over time, they'll just acquire enough knowledge where you don't have to give them as many instructions over time. So that was kind of a long explanation.
No. This is great. And the reason this is great. So let me take a stab. So rephrasing this, basically what you're saying, Genie is like a prompt. And in the prompt, I can type simple English. That prompt sits on top of Databricks. And now as a user, I am typing the simple English, and whatever I'm asking this prompt, the data platform, Databricks Intelligence, which is data intelligence platform, it knows about me and my metadata. And now it knows that, okay, what information to gather and what to display on the screen. Great. Now, question is, as part of the MosaiCML that you guys acquired, and underlying, let's say if we take one level down, are you guys using MosaiCML as part of the data intelligence platform and Genie?
So MosaiCML is a company we acquired last year for I think 1.3 billion, and they focus on basically generating AI models. What they help customers do is customers who have their own data set, we can use MosaiCML's technology to basically, and I think we're calling it Mosaic AI now. So we can use that to basically take an existing off-the-shelf open source model and enhance it or fine-tune it so that it can answer the questions for that customer much more accurately than you could from just some other random open source or some other LLM. And then depending on how much data and what you're trying to do, there's different techniques you can involve. So without going too far into either fine-tuning or you're just, training a whole model from scratch. So MosaiCML allows us to kind of do all those different types of options. Now within Genie, one of the interesting things about Genie is we're basically kind of we're using this platform that we've built over the years at Databricks to enable this application. So that includes what it really is. It's what Matei would call a compound AI application. So you ask it a question, and then it goes through a series of decision points and different LLM models that it's actually calling. So it's not just one model. It's a whole bunch of different models. And some of those models we train ourselves. Some of them, we go out and we leverage off-the-shelf models. But we're continuously fine-tuning, what that application looks like and how we can optimize the performance. So if you can identify, the pattern for what an answer should be without even calling an LLM, that'll make the application faster. And so we do that in some cases as well.
Very nice. Very nice. So basically, you folks are going to make business users more efficient and productive on top of Databricks as a data platform, where they do not have to worry about cleaning the data, prepping the data, transforming the data. All they have to do is ask the question to the data platform / to the prompt / to Genie, and under the hood, it will just give the report back either a question. So it actually takes to the next segment of our episode, which is the integration of Genie across the different tools like how you guys going to deliver that. But going back to my question, so once the data comes out, does it shows up in the notebook, or can I just integrate Looker, Power BI, or Tableau on top of the results which Genie is going to spit out?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Databricks pioneered something called the Lakehouse, and the Lakehouse is basically this marriage of data lakes for scalability and cost, and data warehouses for performance. So, and then as you basically refine your data sets within the Lakehouse, you kind of go from what we call, bronze to silver to gold. So I would say Genie, you should operate Genie on those gold tables. These are the ones that have been, cleaned and highly curated, and you've got really good metadata about what the columns are, rather than, the bronze tables where, it's just a bunch of JSON that you haven't done anything with yet. So the quality of the data sets and the curation still, I think, matters whenever you're using Genie or anything like it. So I think that's one thing to note. Now, right now, Genie is like, it's an application where you've got the prompt, you're asking questions. It's basically like you're chatting with a computer, right? And you can do that, and the interface is much simpler than the full-fledged Databricks application. So it's something you could give to a business user, and they won't get intimidated by all of our other functionality for AI and workflows and data engineering. But we've also been talking to customers, and what a lot of them want is they want to basically integrate Genie with an existing application. So some of these customers, they've actually been pretty advanced, and they've been building their own internal kind of like chat-like interfaces. And they started with unstructured data. So they have ways to basically query their unstructured data and get answers. And now they want to add the ability to query their structured data. And when they look at the scope and the scale of the problem to do that, they realize, man, I don't want to do this unless I have to. And so what they really want is to be able to integrate with Genie, because we've already kind of figured out the hard stuff, and we're just going to keep iterating on it and making it better and better. And so what we've recently done is we've got a private preview now of APIs where you can integrate Genie through APIs into your existing application. And so that way, if they've already built this application with the unstructured stuff, now they can just hook in Genie to do the structured data, and they can decide, which one to call for when. They can make their own compound AI application, essentially. We're seeing that as well, where companies want to abstract away even the simple interface we've given with a UI and just have it be an API call that they make into the application they build themselves.
Very nice. Okay, awesome. Now, let me put together the picture together. So I'm going to put my technical hat. This is how we started our friendship. So you guys bought Archeon, I think a couple of years ago. Last year. Archeon was bought, if I'm not wrong, and please do correct me if I'm wrong at any point, because I do have a limited knowledge. So Archeon was bought to solve one problem: data ingestion, data movement, how to bring data from various data sources into the Lakehouse or into the data platform, which is Databricks. And this year, you guys announced Lakeflow on top of Archeon. So Lakeflow, Lake orchestration, and then Lake transformation. So that ecosystem is coming together where if I'm a customer to Databricks, I can integrate any data set as part of the Lakeflow, and then data will start coming in. Then I can use Lake orchestration to orchestrate the data, and then I can use Lake transformation to transform the data. So my bigger problem, which is bringing data to data platform, is solved. You talked about Medallion architecture. As part of that, this whole Lakeflow thing will help putting together that Medallion architecture. So now 50% or let's say 75% of the problem is solved. Now we go one level up where the business users are coming in and main users are coming in. So basically, if I'm a CTO, CIO of a company, I need to show ROI, the money and time I'm spending on Databricks. And these users who are coming in, they are going to be very productive and efficient as part of the Genie project, because Genie is going to sit on top of that last layer, which you mentioned, gold layer or gold table. And then Genie will start interacting with gold tables. And then I will start building on my my reportings and my machine learning stuff, whatever I want to do, I can just start using that. So basically the point is, instead of me spending months moving this data around, data movement, data integration, so on, I can just be more productive and go to market faster with my data products.
Yeah, I would say like Genie's really focused on the last mile of analytics. So, you're probably already, trying to bring this data into your data lake anyway, and you're probably already going through some sort of like refinement of bronze, silver, gold. But like going back to that retail example where someone's trying to find, the right basket analysis, or like a brand manager of that same retail company, they were wanting to know like what are the products that are trending the most, and then being able to tell their customers what kind of market share that their products had. Like those are the types of questions where there's probably not like a canned report that someone's created to satisfy it. And if that person wanted to get that, they would have to go through some sort of process where I'm going to like file a ticket. I'm going to describe what I want. It's going to go to a team. They're going to queue it up and prioritize it. Then a data report engineer or a data scientist is going to take it, and they're going to, develop it, and then they're going to give it to me. By the time that's all said and done, it could be days, weeks, months before you get the answer. And so inherently, I think what happens is business people, they just don't ask a lot of questions because they're like, that's a heavyweight operation. I'm going to save that for the things that matter the most. And there's a whole bunch of questions like that are just not getting asked in businesses today. So, conversely, that same person asked that question to Genie and got a response within 30 seconds, let's say. So now they can ask, how many questions do they ask a day? They're going to ask like, tens, 100 questions a day. And they're going to be able to make decisions like, I'm going to create a promotion for these two products because I can see that it's trending. Like if they were to wait for a report to come out in 2 weeks, it'd be too late. So I think ultimately the way that AI is going to impact businesses of all kinds is like, how are you going to use AI to be able to make the best decisions faster than your competition? And those decisions ultimately are going to, influence your ability to make more revenue faster, or, be more efficient and, basically decrease your costs and do more with less.
Absolutely, yeah. So Jason, when I speak with my customers, I think one of the challenges keep coming up, and do let me know if this is not the right episode to talk about it, because it looks like Genie is leveraging generative AI extensively, or 100% Genie is 100% based on AI. Is that correct statement?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a compound AI application that is leveraging various LLMs throughout this workflow.
Brilliant. And so the reason I asked this question, because there are enterprises that I'm working with, they are still not very comfortable using Copilot or LLMs or generative AI features because they are worried about the compliance and security. In one of the episodes which I did with one of the AI infrastructure expert on LLMs from NVIDIA, he explained to me clearly that what does it take to be compliant and challenges involved into the whole ecosystem of LLMs. So Jason, as a company, unofficially, let's say you have to, as a technologist, if you have to educate my audience, where are you guys heading towards the compliance piece or the security piece of LLMs / private LLMs, where I know that I'm not sending any of my metadata or data into public cloud or outside of my control? How are you guys addressing that problem as part of Genie?
Yeah, well, with Genie, we're basically making sure that, if we do make any sort of calls to outside LLMs, we're basically just like providing metadata and then asking for that LLM to give us a SQL query, which we then run. And that SQL query gets run, and in the private customer space, just like every other query does. So what we don't do, and I think some competitors might do this, but we don't do this, is we don't run a query, get the results out of that query, and then send that data into the LLM and then get a response back. We're just sending basically information about the schema, column names and stuff like that, so that it can generate a SQL statement. And then we run that in the secure customer environment. And then all that is audited and tracked so you can see what questions are being asked. And then you've got the SQL audit trail, so you can see what SQL is being run. But another component is that it's all on one unified governance layer. So let's say that you go through all of that and you generate a SQL statement and you run that, and the user that's running it is not allowed to query one of these tables. Well, then you'll get an exception that says like, hey, this user is not authorized to query this table. So having this unified governance layer is really important. That's like a Genie example, but I'll give you another example where customers are using Databricks to create RAG application, which stand for Retrieval Augmented Generation. So that's basically where you're kind of like building something like Genie, but you might be doing unstructured data as well. And so the idea is like, usually you ask a question, it'll basically run a search on a search index, get a bunch of relevant documents, and then use that in an LLM, which you can host completely within your 4 virtual walls within Databricks, and then get a response. And so one problem that customers that don't have a unified governance layer are going to hit is that you might go to do a search on that search index, and then that search index, if it's using a completely different vector database, it might not know which documents this user is allowed to see versus not see. And then that's why I think a lot of these AI applications, they go from like 0 to prototype really quickly, but then to go from prototype to production is really long, if not impossible, because you got to have that unified governance layer to know that this user is allowed to see these documents, which can be searched before it calls this LLM, and then audit the whole thing and make sure there's lineage.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed the problem, because going from POC to MVP is okay. MVP to production journey is very long. And another thing, very important thing, which you just highlighted. So basically, you're saying that using the whole integration with Unity Catalog and the whole Databricks platform as part of the Genie, the knowledge warehouse, which I think you're pointing to, behind the scene, you guys have your own vector search. So all those pieces are built as part of the platform. And as a customer, because today, if I don't have Databricks, I have to go figure out Pinecone or some kind of vector database. I have to build a knowledge warehouse, then I have to build the end-to-end layer, and start ingesting the data on top of the data, as you said, RAG. On top of that, I have to build a prompt to start talking to my knowledge warehouse. So what you're saying is that as part of the unified platform, all that is built in, where customers, they don't have to worry about managing and maintaining all those layers. All they have to do is bring Databricks in, work with Databricks team, and then they can start using Genie as part of solving the business problems.
Yeah, absolutely. So you basically equate like Genie to being able to talk to your structured data. So
nice, very nice. And to get to structured, from semi-structured and unstructured data, to get to that structured data, the whole lake flow piece that I was mentioning earlier, that's how you put the whole Lego pieces together, correct?
Yeah, I think, if you think about, Databricks' journey, we kind of started as the notebook company. We had like these hosted notebooks, which, at the time, like 2013, like notebooks were seen as like unstable. Nobody would think about running a production job on notebooks back then. But we had the reputation of like just being super simple. And it was simple because it was coupled with the ability to spin up a cluster on demand. So we made it possible for data scientists to click a few buttons and get like a 100 node cluster without having to talk to anybody in DevOps. So that's kind of like where we started. And then what we found is people were using us not just for the data science, but also for their ETL. So people would run their ETL job. Sometimes it's a notebook, sometimes just on a jar file. Now it's Python, but running the ETL. And then that's what transforms your data from its most raw state into the stage that can be used by the data scientists or for data analysts. And so that's kind of like how Databricks started, and we've evolved from there. The Lakeflow Connect that you were talking about, that allows us to reach further into the first mile, where we're getting data from the source databases like MySQL or Postgres, and then bring that data in a change data capture way. And we also have a number of connectors now that can get data from your SaaS applications like Salesforce or Workday and bring that in as well. And then once you kind of bring it into that first layer, the bronze layer, then we've got technology like Delta Live Tables, which allows you to transform that data easily and do it in a way that you can monitor it. And if something goes wrong, you can easily be alerted and recover from it, et cetera, and upgrade it. So we've kind of like really doubled down on our ETL functionality over the years. And I've been doing this long enough, 20 plus years, where every so often you'll hear somebody say like, oh, ETL is dead, but I think ETL is going to live for a long time. Like you can't get to that gold layer without doing a bit of ETL beforehand. So
I am 200% with you. I know the line is Hadoop is dead, but ETL is not going to die because you have to go from unstructured / source to target and start building application / prompts on top of your target. So, Jason, this brings us to the last piece of our episode. So, when can we get hold of Genie? Is it ready to go, or where are you guys in the roadmap?
Yeah, you can use it right now. We're in public preview on AWS and Azure. So with GCP soon to follow. So you can go get your hands on it today if you're already a Databricks customer, and then you can go search our docs. We'll give you a bunch of information. There's some best practices on there as well about how to set up Genie. I think configuring Genie is just a new paradigm. So if you think about setting up like a report in a BI tool, usually you've got someone who's modeling the data, and then they're creating a semantic layer on top of that data model, and then they're creating reports on top of that semantic layer. And then, if you wanted to add one more column to that, you'd have to go back and do, all three stages. So with Genie, you're basically just pointing it towards a collection of tables that, have been kind of modeled with primary keys and formary keys and descriptions on the metadata. And then you basically just start asking questions, and as you ask it, you uncover things that would you would want to basically give it as instructions. So you start giving it insights like, hey, every time I ask for active users or customers, go back the last 30 days. So you basically just have to give that instruction in English, and then it remembers it for the next time. And so that's a little bit different to how people would configure semantic layers, where you'd have to go to a 1 or 2 week training to learn how a tool does their semantic layer. Then you'd have to model out every single column, et cetera, et cetera. So with Genie, you basically just get up and running really quickly, and then you just start adding more instructions as you encounter things. And over time, it just gets smarter and smarter. So it's a little bit different than how we've done in the past, but A, it allows you to get up and running a lot faster, and B, it kind of lowers the barrier to who can configure these things. So you can have the actual, data analyst or business analyst creating the instructions that configure these rooms. So.
Yeah. One of my favorite features, I don't know if you guys have it in Genie, autocomplete, because sometimes I'm a lazy sales guy. So what if I start typing? Does it know what I'm about to type next? Does it something like that? Yeah.
We have autocomplete in our notebooks, which is pretty good now. So whenever you're typing code in a notebook like Python or SQL, it'll actually get pretty smart and pretty quick to autocomplete what it thinks you should be writing. I don't think we have the autocomplete for the natural language in Genie yet, but, log a feature request. Maybe we'll work on it.
Jason, this is great. I'm so glad that we were able to do this. I'm sure my audience is going to love this. And again, for me, or for a lot of people, you are like a celebrity in Databricks. Yes, it's a true statement. Jason, I know my invitation to you having dinner at my place is open. Let's figure out the dates and let's do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Jason.
I would love that.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Neeraj.
All right. See ya. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Better You. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into today's topic and found some valuable insights to help you on your growth journey. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a review and share Better You with your friends. Together, let's continue exploring the exciting world of tech and business. Until next time, stay curious, stay innovative, and keep growing.